the divine accepts without censure, without rebuking, without scolding, without judging whether he should accept it or not. What is the value? What is the, you can say, the quality of that gift? No. It is how the offering has been made. You don't need any kind of setting to talk to the divine, to pray to the divine. He's always there, in every place, in every situation, everywhere, inside out. You can call to the divine and talk to him. Salutation of my silent and humble adoration. I bow down before thee, thy glory, for it dominates me with all its splendor. Oh, let me dissolve at thy feet, melt into thee. Namaste. Heartfelt gratitude to all of you for being here. The prayer that we will look at today and reflect upon is a prayer written by the mother on July 27, 1914. And this is a particular prayer in this whole collection of prayers and meditations. When we look at the prayers and meditations, these are the mother's diary notes when she was undergoing her own yogic discipline, and she used to pen them down. And she has often written about her trials and tribulations, about her own meditative states, these are basically her dialogues with the divine. And while she writes them, and as she writes them and pens them down, they are always addressed to the divine. Usually we find that often there is a kind of a topic or a problem that she is facing, and she meditates upon that, puts it to the Lord. And then in the same prayer, we often find that she gets the answer. And in the end, towards the end, always there is a prayer for all, for everybody. And this makes the prayers very universal in nature. So when we look at these prayers and meditations, the mother is actually teaching us through these prayers what is the right attitude to take while praying, how to pray. But this particular prayer, it's a direct prayer. She addresses to the divine right from the beginning. And it's a prayer which actually reveals directly how we should pray. What is it that we should ask for, or we can ask for? So in general, as a whole, these prayers and meditations reveal how one should be praying. In general, when the human heart prays and approaches the divine, the human heart has already undergone a lot of exercises, a lot of turmoils, a lot of disturbances, and it's so much exercised when it goes to the divine, or there is some kind of injustice that it has faced, and it wants justice and fairness, and for that it appeals to the divine, or generally it is usually for the fulfillment of some of its needs, which are generally another name for one's desires. So, in this prayer, while the mother is telling us how to pray, we must remember that in integral yoga, there are two very basic and very simple requisites. And one who embarks on this path, one can say, in today's language, one can say that these are the two simple hacks of integral yoga, and that has been put by the mother. And these are to remember and offer. So the Lord, the divine, is with us at each moment. when is He not with us to listen to us and accept our self-offerings? Interestingly, the prayer is written on 27th July, and July 28th, 1914 was also the date. The very next day, the trigger was created for something very ominous, a ferocious battle raging. The rage of the Asuric forces was, the trigger was laid, you can say it was the foundation for that trigger was laid when in Austria, Francis Ferdinand, the Archduke, he was murdered by a Serbian youth. And that catapulted the nations, particularly the European nations, Europe, the continent where the mother took birth, was being drawn into a vortex of furious forces, and the World War I was just about to start. And it is also not a coincidence that at this particular time of the year, or of, you can say, of the era, in the quaint and almost invisible small town of Pondicherry, something major was happening. The seeds of the Arya were being set or sown, and the mother and Sri Aurobindo, they were in their own way concentrating the forces of light to combat these Asuric forces. So the First World War, on the physical level, it seemed like a war, but it was basically a battle of Sri Aurobindo and the mother with the forces of darkness and destruction. It was basically the supramental versus the Asuric forces and the Asura, who called himself the Lord of Nations. So there is often a repeated, you can say there are often repeated references to this battle or this war, and how the mother was gathering the forces of light and putting it to the divine, and also preparing herself and everything in the world actually to combat these forces. So this prayer is written on July 27th. And if we look at the prayers which have been written in July particularly, we will find that there are references of this light engulfing the mother, where she's directly talked of it, and preparing herself and everything she has to undergo to fight the Asuric forces, which were happening at a distance, not in Pondicherry, but slowly the whole world was going to get involved. So she did not let anything go amiss for this. And this prayer is actually an assurance. It is also an assurance that the divine never leaves us. And it is closer, much closer to us than we even realize. We are not perfect. We are full of imperfections and very far away from perfection. But even through these imperfections, the divine can come near us, manifest, reveal himself, if we approach him in the right spirit, the right attitude. And so what are these things? What is this right attitude, or what one can say, what are the hacks of a true prayer? July 27, 1914. With my limited mind, I titled it as At Thy Feet. July 27, 1914. Humbly, quietly, my prayer rises to Thee, O sweet Master, Thou who acceptest without argument and without censure all that is offered to Thee. Thou who givest Thyself and makest Thyself known to all without asking whether they are worthy of it or not. Thou who findest nothing too weak, too small, too modest, too inadequate to manifest thee. Let me lay myself at thy feet. Let me melt into thy heart and disappear in thee. Let me be annihilated in thy beatitude. Or rather, let me be only thy servant, claiming nothing more. I desire, I aspire for nothing else. To be only thy servant is all I ask. A very short prayer of only 3 sentences. The first 2 words, rather, the opening words themselves, give us the 2 requisites, the 2 simple things of a true prayer: humility and quietude. She says, humbly, quietly, my prayer rises to thee. So, when we pray, there is no harm in laying bare our own heart before the Lord and asking Him for certain things which we conceive to be essential for a successful life. Nothing wrong in that. Swami Vivekananda himself has said that you have every right to ask everything from the divine, even the smallest of things. So asking is not the problem. And asking something which will make our life better and comfortable and happy is all very valid and justified. But we must be humble before the Lord, humble before the one to whom we are imploring, to whom we are requesting, to whom we are asking for certain things. It is not unusual in prayers to find examples where one doubts, where one demands. There are prayers like that. One reproaches, one berates, one even scolds the divine, blames the divine, doubts the divine, and very often doubts the divine intervention even after having asked. So in certain traditions, these are legitimate, these are accepted poetic norms, like the Vaishnava tradition and all. And such passionate emotional outbursts, criticism and you can say vital outbursts, they usually do not bring any result, but they end up often in creating more restlessness rather than, so there is a need for calm. So these kind of things that we have just talked of, doubts, reproaches, berates, scoldings, battles with the divine. So these are also very subtle forms of ego, vanity. So because we are wanting certain things to happen to us, if they don't happen, we need something to blame, we need something to punch. We think that it is our right that whenever we ask for certain things, they should be immediately put on the platter before us. And why it is not happening is always somebody else's fault. So these are very indirect or very subtle forms of ego that manifest in us. And certainly on the path of yoga, we cannot quarrel with the Lord or be egoistic. On the contrary, on this path, if we walk softly with adoration in our hearts and with our heads bowed in gratitude. So basically humility, the first point that the mother says, humility. And if we look very closely, humility and gratitude are actually twins. So a confrontational attitude, an attitude of or a stance of confrontation with the divine, particularly in integral yoga, is very self-defeating. If we approach the Lord in the true way, which is the humble way, in all adoration and gratitude then however insignificant we may be, or however little or small our offering may be, the Lord will gladly accept it. And it is not what we give, but how we give that matters. What is it that we are giving to the Lord will not matter. It may be a very small thing. Prayers and meditations में यही तो है. Even the smallest of things which is ailing the mother, she puts it to the divine. But she puts it so candidly, so frankly, as if she doesn't tell the divine all this, she will not be able to rest. So this is divine restlessness, that one lays bare whatever or however one is, whatever is the problem. It may be a very simple problem. It may be a problem as simple as, mother, I am not able to sleep. Or it may be, mother, I am in the habit of making a lot of noise with men while eating. So it can be as simple and as basic as that. But when we are putting it to the divine, we are putting as if there is, the divine is the one, and if the divine is not there, then we are actually nothing. So it has to be put like that. We have all heard of Sudama's poha, right? So he did not carry riches and gold, but how lovingly Sri Krishna accepted that, and how he insisted that he must eat that. So it was all his love and adoration for the devotee. And small offerings. We have all heard of that, I think it's from the Mahabharata, Duryodhan ke meva tyage, sag vidur ghar khayo. So he did not go in for the lavish and the grand food which Duryodhana had prepared for him when he had gone to play as the, you can say, to negotiate between them, so that both the parties. So he was invited by both of them, but he chose Vidur because his offering seemed more genuine. There is also a story which was very dear to the mother, and she never forgot that. This story she heard when she was maybe in her late teens, and she never forgot that. And she always related it to something very significant and poignant about India. So she remembered as an Indian story. So there is an old woman who is so poor that on a particular day, she has managed to she goes begging, and she has found somebody has given her only an apple to eat. So a fruit. So she is so poor that she eats half of it, and half she keeps for the next day. So at night, there is a mendicant who knocks at her hut, tattered hut, and it was actually Lord Shiva. So he asks, so she says, look, I have nothing, but I have this half fruit, apple. If you want, if it fills, if you need it, you may eat this. And she very lovingly served him that. And so basically the story, how the mother put it, that the transformation that we talk of, how we change ourselves, the transformation is actually directly proportional to the sincerity and the humility with which we give ourselves, or to the simplicity or the purity of something that we are offering. So it is directly proportional to that. The more sincere and the more loving and the more in adoration it is to the divine. It may be a very small thing. And sometimes I go to the shrine, I find somebody has just kept a toffee. Or even here I sometimes find so simple, so nice. Has the mother not accepted that? So it is that simple. So the divine accepts without censure, without rebuking, without scolding, without judging whether he should accept it or not. What is the value? What is the, you can say, the quality of that gift? No. It is how the offering has been made. And what do we humans do? Sometimes, we are often in a state of bargaining, or we are always judging whatever has been given to us or what we are going to give to others. Usne mujhe ye diya tha mere last birthday pe, so I also have to give something very nice to him this time. So all these things of how, what is the magnitude of the gift, and what is the value, you can say the monetary value of that gift, how big is it, how pertinent it is, all this is always in our mind. So the divine does not criticize, the divine does not scold, the divine does not judge. He will come near and reveal himself to the most insignificant, the most unworthy, if they approach him in the right manner, if they approach him with all sincerity and humility. That, Lord, without you, I have to tell you this, I have to give you this. Okay? It is all I can give you. So everything, when one is ready to give everything, then the divine is not judging you कि कितना छोटा या कितना बड़ा gift आप दे रहे हैं या offering कर रहे हैं. Actually, all these thoughts of being unworthy, not deserving, pretense, is actually inside human beings, inside our minds. These are not what the divine thinks, or this is not what the divine will rate us with. He will not give us a rating based on how great your offering was. He doesn't rate anything, only we do that, in our pride and in our ignorance. So let not our sense of inadequacy and unworthiness make us keep away from the Lord. This is also kind of a subtle ego कि Lord, मैं तो गया गुजरा हूँ, बिल्कुल I am so downtrodden, or I am incapable, or I am not capable of even looking at you or making any offering. So these are also subtle forms of ego. He is all. The divine is all. And he who offers himself, one also must remember that he is all in all. So through the offering which is made by a beggar, or through the offering which has been made by a child, which has been made by a mother, which has been made by a parent, or anybody, even the Jnani or the Ajnani. So it is he who is making the offering, actually. If you see it very, you can see, if you can reflect a little deeper, you will find what is there without him. There is also there is a Tagore song I am recollecting, that when I say that I am offering to you, this is also a kind of a pride. When I say that I am offering this to you in all humility, and then I feel good about it, that is also vanity. So the mother says that humility is not easy. It is very difficult. And true humility is always, the mother says, it has to be always, and it can be always only in front of the divine. It cannot be for showing to others, or you're put in a situation, so you start acting humble and modest, and then in your heart I am modest. In all modesty, in all humility, I have offered it. The moment this I thing also comes, that I am the one who is being humble, even that, the mother says, that also has to be, you have to even leave that. Only what thou willest, what thou art, only thou art. So with this feeling, when we pray, the divine is already there in front of us. And because the divine is there in front of us, is what is making us do that. We have to remember this. So these are very subtle, one can say, we follow so many conventions, and we are occupied with so many ideas that this is what we should do. Puja aise karni chahiye, puja waise karni chahiye, dhyan hona chahiye, every day we must meditate. Well, when the mother wrote these prayers and meditations, most days, it was early in the morning, she was wearing only you can say, a Kashmiri shawl to keep herself warm. She had a coffee maker, which was kept on the windowsill. She was making a cup of coffee for herself, and she was writing these prayers. So she has broken up all rigidities, all norms as to we have to sit in a particular posture to pray, or we have to go in a particular corner in our house, or we have to, we have to be surrounded by very nice aromatic things. So this all she has shattered. So you don't need any kind of setting to talk to the divine, to pray to the divine. He's always there in every place, in every situation, everywhere, inside out. You can call to the divine and talk to him. So these prayers are nothing but her own dialogues with the divine, where she's telling the divine everything. In fact, there is one very interesting prayer where she had fallen ill for some 3-4 days, and when she reflected upon it, she found that there was a thought which was making her ill, and that thought she had not told the divine. And the moment she did that, all her illness also vanished. So this is the power of the direct relationship with the Lord. Prayer is nothing but a connection, a direct connection with the divine. So the divine, he has his eyes on us all the time. And we do not have to become very virtuous and great worthies to merit his attention. It is always there on us. The grace is always there. So in Pondicherry, the way the mother nurtured the disciples, the workers, she never differentiated between the kind of the work that had to be given because one was a scholarly person or not. Unki drishti hamesha it was there in everybody. So one can say a live example which the mother gave when she used to go on the balcony, jo balcony darshan hota tha, on one glance she would see everybody, and she was not assessing or judging, but her love is so great that whomsoever, the mother has said, whomsoever I see even for a few seconds, मैं उसको अपना बना लेती हूँ. He's mine. I take full charge of that person. So one can say the divine glance is always on us. He's always there seeing us in everything. So if we put on a little bit of makeup and foundation and we go and tell the divine and we tell him all sorts of things, अब मेरे पास इतना ही है, या मैंने इतनी मेहनत करी है आपके लिए, मंदिर में ये देने के लिए चढ़ाऊँगा, you fulfill this wish of mine and I will give you something back. मैं आपको चढ़ावा चढ़ाऊँगा. So all this is not actually prayer. But even that, the mother says, even that, the divine hears, accepts. And whatever is required for that offering to be made pure, the divine works towards that. वो आपको छोड़ेंगे नहीं. जब तक, till the time you have really cleansed out yourself and made an offering, you'll go on doing that. The knocks will come again and again. The knocks come because of that, because of the love of the divine. Not because we are getting punishment क्योंकि हमारा offering ठीक नहीं था, या हमने ठीक से pray नहीं किया, या हमने ठीक से पुकारा नहीं उनको. Every prayer is heard, every call is answered. The mother has written, there's a prayer of the mother. So let us be frank and humble and open before him. And the prayers and meditations are all about that. The Lord is indulgent to our inadequacies, but somewhere the Lord is intolerant to our mannerisms and histrionics, one can say, the vital outbursts. So, a quiet, humility and quietness, they often go together. The moment we approach in humility, in gratitude, automatically we experience a quietude. And without quietude, these feelings also don't come. So they go together. So a quiet, peaceful mind is what we need to inculcate. And it takes time. But depending on the sincerity and the purity of your call, it may come झप से आपके पास आ सकता है वो. So it is the divine Leela. So, and when we are in that state of quiet and calm, automatically it is so wonderful when you think of the divine. For us, we are even more blessed when we think of Sri Aurobindo and the mother. Don't we experience, when you look at Sri Aurobindo's eyes, don't you get a feeling of you are entering the infinite? When you look at the mother, doesn't it, she's looking at everybody. You see all her photographs, all her pictures. उनकी दृष्टि ऐसी है ही नहीं. It is all over. If I stand in that corner of the room, I will feel that the mother is looking at me. So these are, one can say, ये हमें विरासत में मिली है. So let us be very proud of that and let us accept it in all humility. When we experience this kind of a calm and quietude, and one can say that it is a kind of a holy hush or a holy silence, and in which we can truly surrender. And this is, the mother is writing in this prayer that she gets a feeling of melting, you know. There is no sense of I, there is no sense of duality in her, that I am a separate I and you are separate. So she completely melts, her heart completely melts and is one with the divine. I would like to read the prayer, the first part. So she says, humbly, quietly, my prayer rises to thee, O sweet Master. Master is always sweet for the mother. Thou who acceptest without argument and without censure all that is offered to thee, thou who givest thyself and makest thyself known to all, without asking whether they are worthy of it or not. Thou who findest nothing too weak, too small, too modest, too inadequate to manifest thee. And now, after saying that there is nothing too small, too inadequate, too modest for the divine to manifest, he can manifest even in the small, and he is manifesting in the smallest of things. She says, so beautiful, let me lay myself at thy feet. Let me melt into thy heart and disappear in thee. Let me be annihilated in thy beatitude, or rather, let me be only thy servant, claiming nothing more. I desire, I aspire for nothing else. To be only thy servant is all I ask. So there is no sense of duality. The duality has, it's gone, it's lost forever. And in this supreme humility, there is only an aspiration to serve the divine, to be a servant of the divine. And when we read the mother's works, and we find that the connotation that the mother has given to service is something very different and very high and profound. So she has said that it is, you know, in integral yoga, one has to maintain a very delicate balance between the inner and the outer. It is very delicate. And this balance is actually, interestingly, the mother has said, it is tilted more towards the work that we give, the work that we do. Because work is the anvil, she says. It is the anvil on which will be tested the efficacy of the inner development. It is only through work and through service. So, and no work is small, no work is big. Any work for the divine. So, ultimately, ultimately this aggregate that I call myself, the only right that has been given to me is service to the divine. That right I have. And that I must explore fully and give it in all humility, in all gratitude. Isse, becoming a servant of the divine is, I think, the bestest thing for a devotee. What else, what more can a devotee desire, a true devotee desire? So then it is, like Mirabai said, no? Mahne chakar rakho ji. So let me serve you. Let me become your employee. You be my employer. The salary you give me is beyond everything, you know. And then she says, Adi Raat Prabhu Darshan Dijo. So when the nights are dark, when there is obstacle, then the divine, tab darshan dete hain Bhagwan, tab aate hain. तब आपको नज़र आते हैं एक्चुअली. He is there always. But only in your darkest periods, when you are pulled out of the darkness by the divine, you cry, Ma, or you cry, Lord, and you are helped and you are pulled out of the difficulty. You acknowledge the presence of the divine then. But the divine is always there. I think सूरदास जी ने कहा था, दुख में सुमिरन सब करे, सुख में करे ना कोई. So, सुख में सुमिरन क्या होता है? It is adoration. It is gratitude. वही होता है सुमिरन. That Lord, without you I am nothing. Because you are there, I am there. So in humble adoration to the Divine Mother. So one often wonders when one reads these prayers and meditations. The mother was at a very great height. I mean, she is Yogeshwari. And she has written these prayers for us. Can't we make these prayers, at least some of them, our own prayers? And she has left them here for us. There are very short prayers. In a similar prayer, like the one where of this July 27, 1914, there is a similar prayer. And very beautifully in the prayers and meditations, you will find that it's not that mother has written a prayer one time likh ke chhod diya. No, it's not like that. You will often find a pattern. What she has written, maybe in the earlier months, you will find a reference maybe after a month to the same prayer. The same situation is. So life is not one time thing, no. Life is a continuum and it continues. And so in the prayers and meditations, we find a very beautiful pattern of the mother's prayers, where the same things go on repeating themselves in larger and larger profundities. So there is a very beautiful prayer, very similar to this prayer, written by the mother in July only. July 16th. Very similar prayer, but a very so short and so profound. Salutation of my silent and humble adoration. I bow down before thee, thy glory, for it dominates me with all its splendor. Oh, let me dissolve at thy feet, melt into thee. हम इस प्रेयर को क्यों नहीं अपना लेते? So it is all about that. The more we read, the more we fall in love with prayers and meditations of the mother. Even when we start reading these prayers, every prayer is teaching us how to pray actually. Not even that, even if we just read the last lines of most of her prayers, it is for everybody. Very beautiful prayers. And this is what we should be asking for. The mother never asked anything for herself. And if she asked anything for herself, it was only so that she could do things for the collective. She could help in the transformation. So it was all for the collective, all for us. She did. Even if we just go on reading the last lines of every prayer, we will find, let thy reign, let thy peace reign upon the earth. Grant that the best may emerge from everything. You open any page. Oh, give to everyone, Lord, the boon of that incomparable bliss. The last lines are always the most beautiful parts of the prayers. Even if we are not able to read the full prayer, if we just read the last line of that, it actually shows us what we should be asking for in the prayers. So, of course, we are not mother, we are not perfect, but हम उन्हीं के बच्चे हैं. We are her children. And this is a legacy which she has left behind for all of us, her love. And she's always there. Sri Aurobindo and the mother has given us the assurance that the new creation is there. Kalyug to khatam. Ab to supramental is just round the Atimanas is just chaukhat par hai ab. So the mother has said that if you want to join in this adventure, see it as an adventure. So we will read the prayer once more, the most beautiful part. Humbly, quietly, my prayer rises to thee, O sweet Master, thou who acceptest without argument and without censure all that is offered to thee. Thou who givest thyself and makest thyself known to all without asking whether they are worthy of it or not. Thou who findest nothing too weak, too small, too modest, too inadequate to manifest thee. Let me lay myself at thy feet. Let me melt into thy heart and disappear in thee. Let me be annihilated in thy beatitude, or rather, let me be only thy servant, claiming nothing more. I desire, I aspire for nothing else. To be only thy servant is all I ask.